And this is episode 32 of the Lifestyle Entrepreneur Podcast. And my next guest is Rick Mulready, who talks about insider social media strategies, where Rick brings the best of the best insights from top social media experts with big brands on how small business owners can use those same strategies to grow their efforts online and in the social world. And what was also really exciting, Rick helped me with my Facebook promotion for my book launch just a few months ago. So I launched Podcasting for Promotion, Positioning, and Profit, and he helped me tweak in my Facebook ads to help get it to #1 on Amazon. I had a couple other things going on at the same time, but he definitely was a huge proponent to helping me with my Facebook ads. So if that's a direction you're looking to go, Rick is definitely the man to help you with that. So let's get into it. Welcome to the Lifestyle Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Kris Gilbertson, and I'm an author, speaker, and a coach to teaching you how to launch your own successful podcast. And the reason I designed this show is to bring you the top lifestyle entrepreneur experts from all over the world for them to share their key strategies that they've used to launch their own businesses and allow them to live life on their own terms. So tune in every Friday for new episodes and come on over and join the Lifestyle Entrepreneur community at www.lifestyleacademy.com. There you're going to receive VIP training from specific guests from the podcast, along with being able to watch all of the interviews. And I'll also be making it really easy for you to implement these strategies that you're hearing by sending you what I like to call the Lifestyle Cliff Notes on the best of the best lessons learned on the podcast. So let's get started. All right, so before we get started with the show, I just want to thank everyone who is subscribing and leaving awesome reviews in iTunes. I'm so excited that people are enjoying these interviews, and I'm excited to announce First Fridays. So what I'm going to be doing the first Friday of every month, we're going to have a raffle for those of you that have subscribed to the podcast and then also left a review, and it'll be a raffle for $25 gift cards from iTunes, Amazon, eBay, all over the place. So all you simply need to do is just subscribe to the podcast in iTunes and then leave us a review, and your name will go in a hat, and we'll announce that the first Friday of every month. And today's loyal listener shout out goes out to Agents of Change CO. They say inspiring. 5-star. Kris's podcast has inspired me to break out of my comfort zone and start my own podcast. She always introduces the listener to new ideas and concepts through her guests. Great info and great style. Thanks, Kris. Well, Agent of Change, I'm so excited to hear that you're launching your own podcast. That's so exciting, and you're definitely going to have a blast with this medium, and I can't wait to see what happens for you. So keep in touch. Follow us on Twitter over at Twitter, and the ID is just Kris Gilbertson, and let me know how it's going. I'd love to hear from you. So excited for us to dive in now with Mr. Rick Mulready on how to really tap into the insider social media strategies for you and your business. Well, I'm so excited and honored for my guest today. I actually met this gentleman at an event at Social Media Marketing World this year in 2013, back in April, and he's absolutely amazing. One, he's just a sweetheart and a great guy to get to know, but two, his experience and knowledge is going to blow you out of the water to how to help you get started with social media. So his name's Rick Mulready, and his background spans, he's been working in corporate internet marketing and that space for over 12 years, working with companies like Yahoo, AOL, Funny or Die, Vibrant Media, and the list goes on and on. But what he found is after working with a variety of advertisers, all in the Fortune 500 space, is that he wanted to start his own business and start working with small business owners and hiring consulting so he could manage his own work schedule, so to speak. And so what's great is today now he's a regular contributor for the entrepreneur.com. He also runs a super successful podcast called Inside Social Media. And then also he works with successful brands such as Ford, Intel, McDonald's, Pepsi, Coke, Gary Vaynerchuk, and on and on and on. And he also works with small business owners to help you really create a social media strategy that's going to get you results in your business. So I'm so excited to bring you on the line. Rick, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Kris. Thanks for having me on.
Yes, I'm so excited. So let's dive right into it. And I'd love for you to share how you really started to create your own lifestyle business and transitioned, because I think that's one of the biggest questions people have is how do I get out of my, and you were making good money. So how do you transition and start your own business? And then we'll get into more of the social media training.
Yeah, so I was making really good money in what I was doing. And a couple of years ago, so I left my full-time job at September 30th of last year. So just about a year ago, and to focus full time on my social media marketing consulting and the podcast and everything like that. So that plan, though, had been in place for about 2 years, sort of my exit plan, if you will. I am not one to do something sort of willy-nilly. I do a lot of planning, and I really think things through. So for me, that was, okay, I had to get out of debt. I was in significant debt. And I needed to not only build up my business, but I also really wanted to have a security net. I wanted to get some savings going. Yeah. And so that's really what I worked on over those 2 years. Not only, sort of working. I mean, it's very cliche, but yes, I was doing the exact same thing in that I was working early morning. I was working in the evenings on the social media marketing and on the weekends. And, then of course I had the full-time job. And so during that time, though, like I said, I sort of instituted that plan where, I chipped down on the debt. I got this. Once I got the debt down, I got the savings going. And so once I felt like, the business was at a point where I was comfortable with it to make the jump, the debt was gone, thankfully. I'm very, very grateful for that. And then, I had gotten the savings to a level where I was comfortable enough to make the jump to do this full time. That was a year ago, and I do not regret one bit of it.
Yes, well, congratulations. And Thank you. How you did it is really like the way people should do it. Unfortunately, I'm just let's just go, let's just jump, and that's how I've always been. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs are that way. So I think one of the big things you talked about, though, is the debt. Getting out of that, because it can be such a huge nut to crack. If you have a lower overhead, and especially in the online space with using social media and taking your business online, you can have such a low overhead to begin with. Yep. So I think that's brilliant. And then having more of a plan, a strategy of what you're looking to do and what you're looking to take. And you already had tons of experience, which I think is really unique.
Yeah.
So how did you start to craft your consulting business? What were the steps that went into creating that so you could actually leave and start to create that same income that you were making before?
Yeah. So as you mentioned before, I was working with all these big brands. So I worked for the AOLs of the world and Yahoo and Funny or Die and so forth. And while I was there, I really found that, a lot of those companies, and still today, they have minimum spends so that an advertiser can't spend with them unless they're hitting a certain threshold. And for a lot of those companies, a lot of these brands that like the AOL and Yahoos of the world, it's pretty significant. So a lot of small business owners are not going to be able to hit that budget level in order to advertise with them. So I started to see that pretty early on. Early on as far as social media goes. And at the time, Facebook was on just starting its rise and so forth. And I was seeing that, social media marketing is such a great platform for businesses to market themselves, and it does not have to cost any money. You can be really successful without spending any money, without, much of an investment.
Right.
So I saw that, and that's when I started to say, okay, how do I start working with small businesses? How do I start, crafting my own business and helping these guys learn how to be successful in social media? Because a lot of small business owners, most small business owners lack two things. They lack time because they're wearing 18 different hats. They need to do everything. Right. And they lack budget. And so this was social media marketing is a great solution for both of those things. But then it comes into, and I'm sure we can talk about this, is social media overwhelm, and they think they need to be on 19 different platforms and chasing the latest shiny new objects and all this other stuff. So what I really did was, first of all, I educated myself thoroughly on social media and what it took to succeed from a social media marketing perspective. I started watching what other brands were doing in social media and started to sort of teach myself, why is it working for them? What are they doing? What's not working for them? And then I started to develop, at the same time, I started to develop relationships, and I started to, meet as many people as I could, not only in the social media space, but also people who had really successful online businesses. And I know that you talk about this a lot here on the show, is that it all comes down to relationships. And, I started to develop those relationships. I sought out people who were really successful online, have these great businesses, and, I developed relationships with those people. So that's really what I basically surrounded, again, another cliche, but I surrounded myself with people who, were doing good things, who were successful, that I knew that I could learn from, and also hopefully add some value to them, as well.
No, it's brilliant. And I don't think that can ever be stated enough, because it's all about the relationship. It really, one relationship can make the difference in your business. It's just amazing. And what I really like what you talked about too is giving first, how you can help them, how you can, help them with their business, because that always comes back tenfold. And it may not be right then and there, but you never know. I mean, I've had people come back months later and be like, okay, I've got something awesome for you now. So you never know. So I love that. So let's go back, because overwhelm is definitely, that's overwhelm for everything in business, I think, for entrepreneurs. So especially with social media. So let's talk about how to avoid social media overwhelm.
Yeah. So the first question that I always ask my clients and people who reach out to me and ask simple questions is why? Why do they want to be on social media? And a lot of them think, a lot of their response is like, well, everybody else is, I have to be. Or I'm watching TV and I see all these commercials for brands that say, like us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter.
Right.
And then they give you no reason to do that, which drives me absolutely crazy.
Yep.
So they're just there because they think they need to be there. And it's sort of like, and they're also, they're on Facebook, they're on Twitter because, again, they think everybody's on on Facebook and Twitter, which most people are, Facebook anyway. And so they feel like they need to be there too, and they don't have a goal. And you have to start. Actually, talked about this on the podcast today that I just released. That you have to start with a goal. Mm-hmm. You have to have whatever your business objective is. You have to have a clear understanding of what that is, and then work backwards from there. And so, where does social media fit into achieving that goal? It's not going to be the end all be all, but it's very, very likely going to be one, integral part of your overall marketing to get you to that business objective.
Right.
And so that's the first thing that you have to do is figure out what that goal is. And then once you do, you know what your goal is, and then you have to have an understanding of who your target audience is. You have to do that. You have to know, you have to know as much as you possibly can about these people. And from that, then you need to know where they're hanging out online. Are they even on Facebook? Are they on Twitter? Are they using Snapchat? Are they using, try to figure out what that is. And everyone always says, well, how do I do that? I just shared a case study on the podcast today of a small business owner who I actually worked with a little bit, and we were talking about all this stuff. And I said, well, have you ever asked your customers where they hang out online? Or do they are they even on social media?
Right.
And he was like, no. And I said, well, what social media platforms are you on? And he listed off 7 different platforms. And he was so overwhelmed, and he was not getting any results from it.
I can totally understand, yeah.
Yeah, and so we started out by saying, okay, why don't you, and he had an email list, so he said, why don't you email your list and ask them, hey, do you use social media? If so, where do you hang out the most? And then how do you like to be engaged with? That's a question that not many people think about asking, but it sort of takes it a step further, and it shows your customers that you care about them, that you don't want to interrupt them in their day,
Right.
And so Facebook is usually going to be a very good place to start because there's over 1.1 billion people on there. And yes, they're on there for personal connections and having fun and so forth. So you have to figure out a way to communicate with them in a fun way where you're not getting in the way of them, having those interactions. And it's very, 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 very possible to do that.
Right.
So you have your goal. You have your target audience, and then you figure out which social platforms that audience is on, and then choose 1 or 2 of those platforms that best align with your goal and best align with your audience. And also, it doesn't hurt to are 1 or 2 of those platforms do you have fun using?
Right.
I had a conversation with yeah, exactly. I had a conversation with a friend of mine who's a fellow entrepreneur a few weeks ago. And he was telling me that he's on Facebook and Twitter, and he's telling me all the success he's having on Twitter, and he's getting leads and so forth, and he's connecting with his customers and so forth. But then he's like, man, I hate Facebook though. And I said, well, what are you doing on Facebook? And he's told me what he was doing. And he said, I don't get any responses. I don't get any leads. And he's like, Rick, and it just drains the energy out of me. It just makes me cringe when I think I have to do that. And I was like, well, you're doing well on Twitter. You enjoy it. It's succeeding for you. So why are you spending time on Facebook if it's not getting you the results that you want?
Right.
And you're not having fun with it.
Right.
And it was sort of like, I could just feel him go, it was almost like I gave him permission to say, just focus on that one on Twitter. So that's really the key to social media or avoiding social media overwhelm, is knowing what your goal is, knowing who your audience is, knowing where they hang out online, and then how best to engage with them, and then focusing, I call it going deep, on 1 to 2 platforms where that audience is and that aligns with your goal, and also that you kind of enjoy using.
Right. No, I love that enjoyment level, because I think a lot of entrepreneurs are like that too. And I can think of 2 networks right now where I'm like, oh, I got to go post over there. I got to do this. And I've just cut it out. I just said, you know what? I don't need to be everywhere. I want to focus on 2 main channels. And the results have increased because of that. So I think that's brilliant. And, you're going to show up your best too when you're having fun, because people can even, it's like us, like right now, if I was boring, people are going to know, like, I'm not enjoying this. They know, see on Facebook, if you're not having fun with it, why would anybody want to respond if you're not excited about it?
They can see that too.
Yes.
Even though it's online, they can see that. They can sort of feel that if you're not engaged with it, if you're not enjoying it, they can see that.
Exactly. I love that. So that's an awesome breakdown. So let's just recap. So you email your list or your tribe or your current clients, customers, find out.
If you have an actual business, if you have a brick and mortar store, ask the people that come into your store, ask your customers. Like, it's the same exact thing. I just gave an online example, but if you have, a physical business, ask your customers.
I know, I love it. Ask them where they're hanging out, what was that word you said? How do they like to be engaged?
How they like to be engaged with.
Yep, I love that. Yeah. And then just pick 1 or 2 platforms that you're going to enjoy and move that forward. So let's talk about what type of content should people be using on whatever they choose then. Is there different content for the different social networks?
Yeah, for sure. And that's going to really vary based on A, what your goal is, and then B, which platform that you're on. So if you're on Facebook, you are going to want to be visual. Pictures and images and video work really well on Facebook. Questions, like, you have to think about how people consume Facebook. They're over like 700 million. I think the number is like 750 million people of those 1.1 billion are accessing Facebook on their mobile phone.
Isn't that amazing?
So they're waiting for the subway, they're waiting for the bus, they're walking down the sidewalk, they're in the store or whatever, and they're flipping through their news feed. So you have to catch their attention, and you have to make it sort of a quick hit. If you're asking a question, don't ask for a dissertation. You want like simple,
yes or no?
couple word answers, 1-word answer, very short sentence. So the type of content that you use is going to be very different from platform to platform. I don't recommend, when you post something, if say you post something on Twitter, that it also goes on Facebook, because that conversation looks very different. It's on Twitter, it's 140 character quick hit conversation. It's just, quick bites back and forth where you can communicate like that with people. But Facebook is more of it's going to sit out there for a little bit long. I mean, they're still sitting out there, but Facebook is going to be like, as someone scrolling through, it's a very visual platform. So it doesn't quite, it's very different from Twitter in that sense. So make sure that you're not, I don't recommend posting across multiple platforms, with one post or one status update.
Right.
Just like if you're using Pinterest, for example, if you are an image-based company that you can tell the story of your business very visually, and you have a sort of a female-oriented audience, Pinterest may be really good for you.
Right. And
as opposed to Google Plus. Google Plus might not be the best fit for you.
Right.
I like to use the example of NASA. And I've had NASA on the podcast before, and the example that we talked about was that Google Plus is a great platform for them because Google Plus tends to have, sort of that more, kind of cutting edge audience, technologically advanced audience on there, which aligns really well with NASA. Yeah. And so they've figured that out. They've gone on there, and that's a really, really big focus for them, being on Google Plus, and they have Google Hangouts and so forth. So they've gone really deep on Google Plus because they know that what their goal is, and they also know that what their audience is and where they're hanging out online.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's great. That's just a great case study right there on how to actually use that. And that's their main social media platform then that they're focusing on.
I mean, they're on Twitter. I mean, they're on Facebook. They're on all of them, but they do especially go pretty deep on Google Plus, and they use the Google Hangouts quite a bit.
Oh, I love that. That's great. So when you're first starting consulting with a company, I know we just kind of went through the first breakdown of what you do, but now when they're ready to start offering, well, not offering, but really start integrating this in their marketing. What strategy do you have people focus on when they're first getting started to actually implement for their social media marketing?
Listen, sitting back and listening.
Yeah.
Too many people, I call it sort of the virtual soapbox, where they treat social media as like, hey, I'm going to yell my message. I have sales messages. I have things to sell. I have things to promote. And they just get on there and they just start. That's all that they do.
Yeah, they throw up. Yeah.
Yeah, people need to remember that, it's just as easy for someone to unfollow you as it is to follow you.
Yes.
And so, the more that you push that sales message without adding value, the more people are going to turn you off.
Yep.
And so you really have to sit back and sort of listen to the conversations that are going on. And that's really one way to find out if you say you don't have an email list and that you don't have a brick and mortar store where you can ask your customers. Well, the way to find out where your customers or your target audience is just start going down the list. Basically, start with Facebook, do the search. If you are a gluten-free bakery or something, I don't know. I'm just throwing that off the top of my head.
No, that works. Perfect.
It's lunchtime here. If you're a gluten-free bakery, put that into Facebook search and see what kind of communities come up. See what kind of pages come up. You can do the same thing on Twitter. Use Twitter search or advanced search. Look for the conversations that are going on and then see how you can start following those conversations so you can listen to what's being said. And when people have questions or where you think that you can answer something or add value to it, that's when you sort of jump in there. And I don't mean jump in like in an obtrusive way, but you sort of join the conversation there and add value to it. And so that's how you build up that trust. And that's how you build up that getting people to sort of the know, like, and trust you.
Right.
And then after you're doing that for a while, then you can sprinkle in the sales messages. But to start out, I would absolutely make sure that we've identified your business objective. We know who your audience is. We know where they're hanging out and the platforms that you're going to focus on. And then start by sitting back and listening and seeing what the conversations that are happening and seeing how you can engage with them and add value to them.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I love it. So is there anything that you see what are the biggest mistakes you see that companies are doing when it comes to social media marketing?
Great question. And this is actually one I ask a lot on the podcast too, but it's actually what I just said there as far as people getting out there and just shouting their sales messages and not sitting back and not respecting, the people that are on these social platforms. Because, like I said before, depending on what the social platform is, a lot of them they're not out there for business. They're out there to have fun. They're looking for pictures. They're looking for ideas to decorate their house, whatever it is. Yeah. And so you need to figure out a way to engage with them without turning them off, and the way that you do that is by sitting back and listening and not shouting your sales messages or promoting all the time. I mean, I'm not saying not to do that, but you have to kind of sprinkle it in. I'd say for every 5 messages that you're putting out there, make sure that 4 of them are where you're adding value or you're sharing content or of some sort. And then you can sprinkle in those, sales and promotional messages.
Yeah, I love that. So since the majority, 3/4 of the Facebook users are on their mobile phones, what are some of the strategies that you have people using? Are you incorporating promoted posts, Facebook ads, and how do you incorporate that when it's mobile?
It's the same way. And it's all about being in the newsfeed. Mm-hmm. The most of the success that's happening on Facebook ads, and I'm not saying that the marketplace ads, which are those right-hand side, the right-hand column ads, don't work, because they certainly do. Right. But it's really about being in the newsfeed. And so page post ads are great, which basically means that you post something to your Facebook page, excuse me, and then you turn that into an ad that runs in the newsfeed. Mm-hmm. And you can target that ad. You can target to you can slice and dice that 1.1 billion people down to a very niche audience and make sure that it's in the newsfeed, and they're very, very effective.
Oh, I love that. Now let's get a little bit specific here, because I really think Facebook is where a lot of people are tackling a lot right now, especially with the Facebook ads and how Google got so expensive. Yep. So with the promoted posts, we know we can target that. Is there a way that they can target specifically to their current clients? With the Power Editor, you can upload your leads when you do the Facebook ads. Can you do that with the promoted posts as well to take up more feed?
So the promoted post is you're talking about promoting, right? Like you put your status update and then you promote it for more people to see.
Exactly.
I'm personally not a big fan of that because you can target it, but you can't get as granular as you're targeting with when you move over to Ads Manager or Power Editor, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
So you can, yes, but to answer your question is yes, you absolutely can target your fans, but when you're promoting a post, you basically can do, I have to think off the top of my head. You can do like region, you can do male, female, that sort of thing.
Age, I think, yeah.
Yeah, it's very, very limited though.
Okay.
And so what I would recommend is putting your post up there, but then going into your Ads Manager or in Power Editor if you're using Power Editor, and then turn that post into a page post ad. You have a lot more flexibility there. You can get far more granular with your advertise or with the targeting.
Yep.
And I think you're going to have much better success doing it that way.
Oh, I love that. That's brilliant. Because I think it's easy to just put a promoted post up, but if we're going to do it, we want to make sure we get the right results from it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And a lot of times, like, yes, you are reaching, friends of fans if you promote a post, but you can't target that in any way. It's strictly a friend of a fan of your page. So
right.
Whether that person is the right audience for you, you really don't know. And that's why I recommend taking it a step further, not promoting that post, but then turning it into an ad so then you can really get granular with your targeting.
Right. And let's go just a little bit deeper because when we go into promoted posts, and I always say these wrong, so correct me if I'm messing it up. So now we did a promoted post, we put it back into I'm going to let you explain that. When you put it into the back, what did you say?
The Ads Manager.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah. Well, so your Ads Manager, that's technically not right. Ads Manager is just sort of your the hub of where all your ads are, and then you go into Ads Creator from there.
Perfect.
If people are users of Power Editor, which I'm a huge fan of, you can do a lot more things in there as far as your targeting capabilities and so forth. So it's a little bit more confusing, but it's once you kind of get the hang of Power Editor, it's awesome. For example, there you can upload, I think you mentioned it before, but you can upload, if you have an email list of people, you can upload your email list in there. You can target ads to what Facebook does is it matches their database of email addresses to your list. And then let's just say you have 5,000 people on that list. Well, you might be able to target 3,500 people of that list.
Yes.
And so it's a form of what they call retargeting, where you're showing an ad to a qualified person because they're on your email list. And they also have lookalike targeting, which basically means that Facebook will take your email list and they'll look at the qualities of, so the ones they're able to match up, they're able to take all the qualities of those people and come up with a list. It generates a list of a whole other list of people who have the same attributes as the people on your list.
I love it.
And so that's a more advanced, that's come out fairly recently.
Yeah.
But that's a really, really cool option that they do have.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. I love that. When I found out about that, and just so everybody knows too, it's based on the email address that the individual has signed up on Facebook, so that's why it can't target necessarily all of them.
Right.
But you're still going to it saves you a ton of time for the targeting. And then the only thing I want to talk about just with the targeting is what are the main, should people be going after large numbers like million, or should they focus down to like 50,000 people?
Yes, the more niche you can get, the better.
Okay.
That's one thing that when I was doing Facebook advertising campaigns for people, I'm not doing that anymore.
Right.
But that was the biggest thing that I saw was people thought that, oh, cool, I'm able to target 1.5 million people.
Right.
And yes, in the grand scheme of things, when you have 1.1 billion people on Facebook, 1.5 million is really cutting it down. Yeah. But that's the beauty of Facebook because they have so much data about their users.
Yeah.
As a marketer, use that to your advantage because you can get really, really specific on your targeting. And I would say that 1.5 million is too big. I kind of use and there's no right or wrong here, but I personally use that sort of 250,000 number as sort of the top threshold, and that's pretty high.
Yeah,
I'd rather be a little bit lower than that, just because that way I know I'm being super, super specific with my targeting, and I'm hitting my exact the exact niche that I want to hit.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I made that mistake when I started, and when I honed it down, I was getting more interaction and more engagement then too, which is why that works so well. So I think that's brilliant. So let's shift gears now. So, I mean, when you left your position and started your business, one of the main marketing channels is your podcast, which is an awesome podcast. I'm loving it. So let's talk about that. Why did you go the podcast route, and why did you launch a podcast?
Yeah, I didn't. When I left the job, I had no intention of. I'd never even thought about doing a podcast, and so I was on a flight at Christmas time, heading back to the East Coast, and I was listening to Gary Vaynerchuk being interviewed on John Dumas's show, Entrepreneur on Fire.
Yep.
And one of the final questions that he asked Gary was, "What books are you reading?" And or what books do you recommend, or something like that. And Gary, I won't repeat exactly what he said, but he was like, look, I don't really read a whole lot.
Right.
But if I do recommend anything that you do read, you read Ad Age, and that you read Tech Meme. And they're, obviously both sites.
Yeah.
And he said, read Ad Age to see what the big brands are doing well. And so you can keep track of that, keep an eye on that. And then Tech Meme to keep up with what's going on in the tech world. And so a little light bulb went off in my head. I was like, my whole 12 years has been working with, not only was I working for these big brands, but I was working, when I was with these brands, I was working with the biggest brands in the world.
Right.
And so I'd already been doing the social media at that point. At that point, I was doing Facebook marketing, and I was kind of getting a little restless with the Facebook marketing, and I really was looking for a new direction. So when I heard that light bulb went off for me, and I was like, you know what? That's what I can do. That gives me an opportunity to combine my past, the past 12 years of my life, working with these huge brands in internet marketing, but combine it from a social media perspective. Mm-hmm. And so get outside of just that Facebook marketing and look at social media from a holistic standpoint, but teach people how to get the most out of social media based on what's working well for the most successful brands in the world.
Yes.
And so let's face it. I mean, these guys have the budget. Yep. These guys have the teams. They have the people in place. So they have the resources to test out different things.
Yep.
And, one of the best ways to learn is to find somebody who's doing it well in your niche or your industry and model what they're doing.
Exactly.
And when I say model, I don't mean copy, but look at what they're doing and see how you can apply that for your own business.
Yep. And
so I love that I love that thought process, and I've been a big believer in that for a long time. So it was sort of like the perfect marriage for me, where I was able to look at my experience in the past 12 years. I was able to expand the social media I was already doing, and I was also able to incorporate this big belief that I've lived by as far as modeling people who are doing something successfully.
Right.
So then the podcast was sort of born. People kind of have kept pushing me to do a podcast. And I was like, hell no, I'm not doing a podcast. And I'm like, I know nothing about audio. I hate hearing my own voice. If I ever hear my voice, like leaving a voicemail, it was like nails on a chalkboard.
Oh.
And so I didn't even entertain it.
Yeah.
So I did an interview when was that? January of this year.
Yep.
Ekaterina Walter, who at the time was the head of Intel's social media. Mm-hmm. She released a book earlier this year called Think Like Zuck. So it was a book about the attributes that make Mark Zuckerberg so successful.
Oh.
And so at the time, it was all obviously about Facebook. And I was still at the time focusing on Facebook.
Right.
And I was like, you know what? Kind of be cool to interview her.
Yeah.
And have that information on, like, not in a podcast way, but still do an audio, and have that information on the site.
Yeah.
Mine who represents some pretty big authors, and I was like, hey, do you happen to know this person? He's like, no, I have no idea. And I told him my idea, and he said, but I bet if you go to her website, hit the contact form, and reach out to her, she'll probably say yes because she wants to promote her book.
Right.
And I was like, but why is she going to want to talk about, why does she want to talk to me, And I was like, I have nothing to lose.
Yep.
So I emailed her. Within like 2 days, she got back to me, and she said that she'd be happy to. It was the worst quality recording ever, like audio perspective.
Yeah.
But I get off that, and I was so pumped up because I loved having that conversation with her. She gave such great information.
Yeah.
I knew that my audience would get a lot from it. And it sort of went from there. Then it was like, okay, maybe this podcasting is an avenue to take.
Yep.
My buddy Pat Flynn was telling me like, no, podcasting is where it's at.
Yep.
And a lot of people telling me. And so finally one day I literally was like, I'm going to do this. And Pat helped me, tell me what the equipment to get and everything. Yep. I went through his free tutorial as far as the equipment and so forth.
Yep.
And I just jumped in. Honestly, it was something that I really didn't think about a whole lot. I knew that it was a really, really good marriage, again, of everything I've been doing.
Yep. And
I'd gotten such a high off that conversation I had with Ekaterina that it sort of carried me in. And then it was, okay, how do I get these guests? So the idea of the podcast is, what I do is I have the heads of social media from the biggest brands in the world on the show. And we talk about what they're doing well in social media, but always with the angle of what small businesses can learn from what they're doing and how they can apply what those big brands are doing. Again, because those big brands they have the resources, they have the budget, they have the people, sort of let them do it first. And then there's always principles that they're using that are totally applicable to small businesses. Yeah. And how does a small business do that with no budget? Exactly. And so that's the whole angle of the show. And I knew that right off the bat. I knew what I was going to do. I knew the angle, and I was like, all right, now how do I get these big brands on the show?
Yeah.
And so, of course, I immediately reached out to my network from, my past corporate life, and I landed McDonald's right off the bat. And I started emailing people, and it wasn't working. The McDonald's thing was, I don't want to say easy, but I had that connection because I had, a contact from before.
Right.
And so then it became, all right, how do I reach these people? So I love connecting with people. I love doing the research of like, all right, how do I find this person?
Yep.
Why do I even want to have this person on the show?
Yep.
And then I started emailing people, and I wasn't getting any responses at all. Mm-hmm. And so, like any good marketer, I started tweaking my subject line, and I tweaked the email itself. And then one afternoon, I remember I was sitting in a coffee shop, and I got like 3 responses from people. And I was like, that's it. I've sort of found the format of the subject line and the email.
Right.
And so one person who I really, really want to have on, because he's sort of like, he's very, very well known when it comes to corporate social media, and it's Scott Monty from Ford. Mm-hmm. And so Scott was somebody that I really wanted to have on the show, but I figured it's going to take me a little while to get him on the show.
Yeah.
But then that afternoon, when I had these 3 or 4 people respond to me based on that email, I was like, you know what? Something's working. I'm going to reach out to Scott right now. Like, I have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
And to my surprise, he got back to me within 2 days. He's like, I'd be honored to be on the show. So that's sort of, it just snowballed from there. And I launched with Scott from Ford, Rick Wyan from McDonald's, and Frank Eliason from Citi.
Yep.
And today was episode number 24, and it's gone really, really well. I've had some great brands on there: Pepsi, Coke, Southwest Airlines, JetBlue. I've had Gary Vaynerchuk on. I've had Chris Brogan on, the NBA, CNN, and some great brands lined up. So and I love it. And that's the funny thing is I'm doing a medium here that I never thought I would do.
Yep.
But I love being behind the mic now, and I still don't super like my voice, but I just get off a conversation and I still have that high. I'm so pumped up because I not only was able to connect with that person, but I was also able to get information out of him that I know my audience is going to learn from.
Yes. Yeah, I love that. I love that you had that epiphany too, and that you took the plunge and you just did it, because I think a lot of people can be concerned with whether it's podcasting or Facebook, or they're, a little bit nervous about it. And I think everybody has that voice thing. My students are always like, oh, my voice is like, get over it. You got great content. So I love that. And I like that you shared. Or what were you going to say?
I was going to say, I felt better because a couple people later, after I released the first show or something like that, they said, dude, you have a really good media voice.
Yes.
And I was like, I don't think so, but thank you. I feel better now. It sort of helped me.
Oh, that's great, though. I mean, I grew up not liking my voice at all. I was always in music, but I never sang. I was always in the other things. And people were like, oh, yeah, your voice is great. So you get feedback that
Yeah.
you don't see about yourself either. And
Right.
so what I love it too that you shared how, you know, in the beginning it wasn't super easy getting the interviews or what you had. So
No.
and I love that you share that because not everybody
It's
does.
still not easy.
I mean, it is something that we all deal with that it's getting out there and getting the right, getting them at the right time. So
Yes.
would you be willing to share maybe a few of the tweaks that you had? Because I think a lot of people have that question too of how they can get the big names and get them for their shows.
Sure. So the subject line, I mean, as with any email, you have to catch their attention. So what I do is I mention, you know, that I would like to feature them on the Inside Social Media podcast. And I name a few brands, like, you know, big brands. And I'm fortunate to be able to throw around, you know, some big brand names like NASA and GE and so forth.
Right.
And, you know, I make sure I personalize those brands to the person I'm reaching out to. And then in the early part of the email, I do a lot of research on my guests, whether I'm just reaching out to them or not.
Right.
Because, like, don't reach out to somebody if you haven't done that research. I mean, they need that respect from you. You owe them that respect. If you're reaching out and asking them to be on the show,
Yep.
you need to do your research. And so that's what I lead with. I lead with some sort of thing that they have going on, and I let them know why, you know, I think that's really cool or important, or, you know, it shows them that it's not just some forum email that I'm sending out, that
Right.
I've literally done research on this and so forth. And then I kind of go into the show. I give a description of what the show is about and why I'm doing it and who I'm trying to help with it.
Yep.
And then, I go into, you know, here's who I've had on the show. And I literally do I don't know when I'm going to stop doing this, but right now I list all these, like every single person I've, so now I've had 24 people on.
Yep.
And I give them a list with like these people from all these brands.
Yep.
And I include a link to the show, like if they'd like to check it out. And so, yeah, you know, like if I would, you know, be very, I forget how I ended it, but something about, you know, I'd be very grateful for your consideration or something like that. Would love to follow up with you or something like that.
Yeah.
But just that's the thing is it's not easy to get these guests on the show.
Yeah.
You're showing social proof by you're letting them know who else has been on the show.
Yep.
And you're also showing them how much you value them by doing all that research and giving them a reason why do you want to have them on the show? Like, why do I want to have I'm going to have HBO on the show pretty soon. Like, why do I want HBO on the show? Or, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
make sure that you're letting them know that you're taking that very, very seriously and that you're doing research and looking into all that stuff.
Yeah, that is so important. It really is, especially with so many interview-based shows out there today too, and how you can spin it with a different angle and what they're focused on. That was, I think, the most brilliant part of that is what they're focused on right now and what they're out there talking about or they want more exposure with. If you can find that, that's even more brilliant because they're going to say yes immediately.
Yeah, they're more likely to, if they're promoting something, they're more likely to say yes to you because that's another, you know, it's another avenue for them to promote.
Yep, exactly. So is there anything else that you've noticed from launching your podcast that has helped you in your business?
Oh God, yeah, it's been the biggest, the best decision I've made. I'm reaching people in over 100 countries right now that I never, in an amount of time that I've reached them, I would never have been able to do it with just the blog and just consulting and so forth.
Yeah.
I mean, I hear from people every single day, like how, you know, it's changing their life. I got an iTunes review a few weeks ago, actually probably about 2 months ago.
Yeah.
This was a kid who said I don't know if it's a he or she, but they had just graduated from college in May, and they'd been listening to the show ever since I started it.
Yeah.
And because it's the same industry that this person is in, and he or she went into a job interview after graduating, and apparently was in a little bit over their head with the position they were applying for. And what they did, this person told me that they did, was they used the information that they learned on the podcast.
Yes.
And started throwing around all this information and ideas and so forth. And the company was so impressed with this person that they hired them on the spot.
Love it.
And like that type of stuff, like that, you know, like that's success for me. Like I actually, you know, hopefully I have, in my own way, really help that person out for the rest of their life. You know what I mean? Like their first job here out of college.
Yes.
So I love hearing stories from people of like how the show is helping. You know, I get notes like, you know, I have a 90-minute commute and listening to your show makes it seem like it goes by in a blink of an eye. You know, like that type of stuff, you know? So it has become the best platform. I love it. And it's my favorite platform. The other thing too is it allows you, it allows you to connect with your audience in a way that you can't do on the blog. It allows them to hear your voice. It allows them to hear your personality. In your case, where you have so many different mediums here, they're able to see you.
Yep.
So it's a great platform.
Yeah, no, I love that. It's brilliant. I mean, it really does. I like to say it brings the black and white to life. I mean, it really just
for sure.
They stay engaged with us longer. I love it. They're like, Kris, I'm taking you to the gym. I'm going over here, like crazy places that they're listening to us at.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's brilliant. Well, fantastic. So what I want to talk about is, because we're already going so long here, you've given such amazing information.
I've been blabbing.
No, not at all. This is awesome content. So what I'd love for you, what are the future trends you see for social media going forward?
Yeah, I would say definitely two things. And it's terrible that this is a trend because it should be a given, but it's the customer relationships that you should be using social media to develop. And what I mean by that is truly listening to people and engaging with them and helping them out. JetBlue does an amazing job of this with their customer service. Like, they have so many people traveling and people are tweeting out to JetBlue with questions or whatever. And JetBlue is really, really good at responding back to them. They're helping them out. Unfortunately, like I said before, it's a trend because more and more people are starting to do it, but it should really be a given. That's how really you should be treating social media, is that opportunity to have that conversation with people.
Right.
The second thing is the location-based marketing. The ability to serve a message to somebody who at the right time of day, who is the right person, and have it be the right type of message. So for example, if you're on Foursquare and I'm walking down my neighborhood here, and I check into Starbucks, for example. Well, if it's 3:00 in the afternoon, maybe I'm going to use the bakery again. Maybe there's a bakery next door who, flashes up a message like, hey, we're having, half off cupcake of the day or something like that. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's that type of location, and that's totally off the top of my head. But
that's so smart, though. Yeah.
Yeah, the ability to serve a message based on your location and other factors that are like time of day and so forth.
Right.
It's really trending that way. And of course, mobile, but mobile is, that's a trend that's been around for a while, but it's all based on mobile. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and it's also, you're hitting on the habits of what people are accustomed to already doing anyway.
Yep.
And if you can offer up another incentive and they're going to just keep remembering you and your engagement, they're going to say, oh, they're taking care of me. They already know what I want.
Yeah, exactly.
That's brilliant.
I just read a story last week real quick about how Starbucks and other companies like that are using social data to figure out where to open up locations. So they're looking at check-in data and all this other stuff to figure out where to open up locations, which I think it's all about big data these days. But I think that they're using this information to make educated decisions like that is really smart.
Oh, it's so, that's what, to bring it back to podcasting for a second, that's what for speakers, coaches, and comedians, we look at our numbers of where the largest downloads are, and that's where you do your events. Same thing you can do with social media, with the Facebook, all of that. So I think that's brilliant to be able to use that to your advantage to really maximize your ROI for those companies. So that's great. So the last question I have for you is, it's 5-minute makeover question. If you had to start over today and you didn't have any of the resources that you've gained now over the years, and you didn't have any of the connections that you've gained, what would you do to start over and rebuild your empire?
Are there people around? Like, I'm not on like a deserted...
You're not, like, this isn't... Well, what's that story where he goes back in time and no one's there? No, there's people around. You just don't have your connections and you don't have resources. You have no money and you have no contacts.
No money, no contacts. I would just start going to have conversations immediately with as many people as I could, whether that's people on the street and also businesses as well. I'd want to get to the bottom of what their biggest challenge is. How they're using the media that's out there, how are they engaging with other people. And again, finding out what that biggest challenge is, and then start to solve what that challenge is. They might have multiple challenges, but which one sort of best aligns with what I'm able to help them with, and then to start helping with them. I would also be taking a lot of video of people. Do I have a phone? I don't know if I have.
Yes,
I don't know if I have
a
smartphone, but I have no resources.
Right.
I'd be having those conversations with people and trying to find out what their biggest challenges are, and and do my best to solve the ones that I feel like I'm most able to help them.
So with video, go on with that though. What would you do?
Well, I mean, just talking to people on video. I mean, I'm kind of breaking the rules here, of the question here, but with the ability to do short content on video, that's another trend too, is the ability to tell your story, your business's story, in video format. And you have the Vines of the world, which is 6 seconds, and you have Instagram, which is 15 seconds. But the ability to tell your story over video in short chunks, again, like, I hate this word, but I'm going to use it, snackable content.
I haven't heard that one yet.
Oh yeah.
Snackable, bite size.
Yeah, exactly. But that is a real trend that is happening too. So that's why I said video. I think it would be cool to catch these, have these conversations with people on video.
Yeah.
And then start to share those conversations with other people that the information that those people are giving can help other people.
Well, that's brilliant. I mean, everybody today has a smartphone that has video capability. So there's no excuse that you can't use that in your business and make it really easy and throw those up on YouTube and have, short clips to start driving traffic or to get that engagement out there. I love that. That's brilliant. I like that snackable content or tweetable for the day there. So that's fantastic. Well, Rick, this has been an absolute blast. So tell everybody where they can go find out about you and your special offer that you have for our listeners.
Yeah, I put together an offer for your listeners. So it's at rickmulready.com. That's rickmulready.com/Kris. And on that page, you're going to have, so I give away right now, a free guide. And it's called Social Media Success, 5 Big Brand Social Media Strategies for Your Small Business Budget. So I'll give that book away. But I've also put together on every podcast, so 24 so far, 24 episodes, I always ask this one question, and it's one of my favorite questions. I ask, if you were just starting out in social media, what are 3 things that you would do to, for your business to start out? Mm-hmm. And I've gotten some great answers. So what I've done for you is I put together all those answers in one book. Mm-hmm. And so it's going to be a resource of everybody's answers to their top 3 things that they would do. And these are the biggest brands in the world who are giving this information. With my own angle to it as well, I'm adding to it. And so I put that together for you. That will be there for your listeners on the page. And also I've included some checklists and so forth to kind of get them going in social media. And like we talked about before, how to avoid that social media overwhelm. And again, the podcast is Inside Social Media. Mm-hmm. And then, the site, my headquarters is rickmulready.com.
Awesome. I am so excited for everybody to get access to that because the names that you have out there and some of their tips, I've already listened to a lot of the shows. It's brilliant, but it's going to be in a consumable content that people can really take action. And then you've got the checklist with it to really make sure we're set up for success, to implement it right.
That's the whole thing is everything I do is focused on what you can do right then and there, like you hear it and then you can go do it. So it's very actionable for your business.
Yes, I love it. Well, this has been absolutely amazing. We'll have all the links and everything in the show notes as well. So again, thank you so much for joining, and I can't wait to have you back on in the future.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks. And I hope you enjoyed that episode. I'd love to get your feedback here for the Lifestylepreneur podcast right in iTunes. Simply leave us a 5-star and a review letting us know what you like, who you're interested in hearing more from, and what topics you really want help with in your business that I can bring on those key experts to really fine tune and help you in your business and creating the lifestyle of your dreams. And I'll be giving shout outs, so make sure you put your name and your website address if you want me to share that with the community as well. And again, thanks for listening. I'm so excited that you found the Lifestylepreneur podcast, and I can't wait to connect with you and learn more about your business as we continue to grow this community. So again, have a great day, and I'll talk to you next week. Thank you for tuning in to the Lifestylepreneur podcast. Again, I'm Kris Gilbertson, and I'm committed to bringing you top training from leading lifestylepreneurs all over the world to help you break through and turn your dreams into your ideal lifestyle. And make sure to join us at www.lifestyleacademy.com to receive VIP training from specific guests I interview on the show so that you can really easily start to implement what you've learned from listening. I know we're all busy, and sometimes we don't have time to listen to the entire podcast or take notes because I'm always listening on the go. So I like to call it the Lifestyle Cliff Notes to creating your ideal business and make it really simple for you. So those will be sent via the email list. Plus, I also want to connect with you personally, and being on the Lifestyle Academy mailing list is where all the magic happens. We'll host VIP trainings once a month that we can't always bring out on the podcast with even more detailed information. And I also want to connect with you personally. I want to know what's going on in your business and what you need help with and who I can bring on to aid you in creating your ideal lifestyle. And so I'll be asking questions every once in a while that I want you to reply, and I reply back to you personally. So again, until next time, wishing you on your way to achieving all of your dreams. Talk to you soon.